Hey, it's Shari, and today I want to talk to you guys about something called anchoring. If I say I'm triggered, what do you feel like that means? If you hear the word trigger, what comes to mind? I'm sure it's something negative, right? It doesn't have to be. So what anchoring is basically relating an object or even I guess a noun. I'm just gonna say it, relating a noun to a feeling. So I use this specifically for manifesting. I'm gonna take my bent pen and pretend like this is magic. This is my magic manifesting pen. Anything that I want to come to fruition in my life, I'm going to use this pen and this notebook, and when I write down stuff, it's magic. It's going to happen. And this can happen with same thing as negative trigger associations. If you had a bad experience and let's say a specific person was around, anytime that you see that person, you're probably going to be triggered into those negative memories, those negative emotions. I'm trying to think of an example. Okay, so the first thing that popped into my mind was when I was like 16 years old, my boyfriend, I don't know why I said boyfriend, my boyfriend at the time, which is now my husband, was helping me. I think we were just rearranging my room or something, and I had this stuffed, it actually wasn't stuffed, it was like one of those like animals, a stuffed animal that it had like a hard interior, and because it made noise, it was an orangutan, and you pushed its stomach and it would make noise. And I just remember as we were cleaning, Brian picked up this, what he thought was a stuffed animal, and just threw it at me. He thought he was being funny, whatever, it wasn't a big deal. He threw it at me, it hit me in the face, and obviously it hurt. So now, like, anytime I see an orangutan, that's what I associate orangutans with now, is that memory. Well, okay, wedding songs is another good example of something positive, a positive trigger or a positive anchor. So anytime I hear, I actually just, I think you can see it in the background. For Christmas, I got me and Brian a record player, and I went to a bookstore and picked up an Etta James vinyl record. And the song that we walked down the aisle to, or walked back down the aisle to together, was At Last. So anytime I hear, or anytime I play to listen to Etta James At Last, that is the moment in my head that I go back to. That's what I think of. So now that you have a little bit of an understanding, I want you to pick an object and make it a magic object, or try and create something positive with said object or said person or said thought. It could literally be a word. I could, let's see, declare. Anytime I hear the word supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, it's going to bring me joy. So, and I mean, with a word like that, like, how could it not bring you joy? But it's just stuff like that like every time I eat an Oreo, I am going to think happy thoughts. And so now that I'm saying that, I'm kind of projecting this anchor onto you. Every time you eat an Oreo, you're going to have happy thoughts. And you can be creative with it. You can do whatever you want. Like I said, it's one of my favorite things to do as far as manifesting, because with manifesting, the more that you truly feel what you want to happen, and the more that you know something is going to happen, the more likely it's going to happen, right? So if I say, this is my magic pen, this is my magic paper, anything I write comes to fruition, that's my positive anchor, is this pen and this journal. And I know that this is something that works for me personally, not just the manifesting part of it. Manifesting does work too. Like I said, the specific pen, the specific paper, scripting is what I like to do. It's literally like writing a diary. Like anything you want to happen, write it as it is happening, or write it as if it has already happened. And doing that has gotten me through some pretty dark times in my life, and it's worked. Things have always worked out how I want them to work. So you better believe that I'm doing that currently with my current situation with my husband being in the hospital. But so that's just how I use a positive anchor most recently. But like I said, be creative with it. It can be anything. A lot of people like to do it with water. So as usual, I have coffee, but people like to, you can set intentions, positive anchors, positive intentions with, it doesn't even have to be water. I could say, as I'm drinking coffee, I am going to become more awake. I think of anchors almost as like you're, in a way, kind of hypnotizing yourself. And now that I'm thinking about it, I think that's kind of what hypnotists do, because you're using that association. Anytime you see a chicken, you're going to cluck, or anytime you hear a bell, or if you hear a bell, you're going to wake up, or whatever they say. It's that association with an object is going to make you have this reaction. So like I said, triggers can be negative or positive, just like everything else. I made a TikTok recently talking about catastrophizing. I'll probably make a video on that at some point, but basically catastrophizing is like when your mind comes up with these scenarios, these what ifs, and it kind of plays things out, so you know how you're going to react just in case something happens. I do that often, and I have to catch myself and tell myself, like, no, that's not my story, is what I tend to say. That's not my story, that's not my ending, that's not what's happening here. And you can flip that. Anything that is an extreme negative, flip it and see the extreme positive. Instead of saying, what if this negative thing happens, but what if it doesn't? What if this amazing thing happens to me? So like I said, same thing with triggers. They can be negative or positive. I always choose the positive. I hope that you always choose the positive, and be creative. Go pick up a positive anchor. Use it while you're manifesting. Yeah. Okay, so I want to try a little anchoring exercise. Think of a time where you were happy or confident or some other positive emotion. I want you to really relive that experience. If you have to close your eyes, feel yourself there. Really try to actually put yourself there. Remember, use your 5 senses to remember, what did it feel like physically, emotionally, mentally. Were there any smells at that time? Literally put yourself back in that position, and then you can literally, it doesn't have to be something other than yourself. You can, a good one is tapping your middle finger to your thumb. So just as you are imagining that scenario, feeling all the positive emotions that you experience at that time, I want you to tap your middle finger or your forefinger, whichever you choose, to your thumb, and now you are creating an anchor using your own body, using a movement that you can create and take any single place with you. So now this motion is anchored to that feeling. go ahead and try it out. It may not work for you, but I hope it does. Just try tomorrow to, if you're feeling a little sad or whatever, just test that, do that motion and see if it brings back those feelings, if it makes you feel whatever you felt and relive that memory just by using that motion. That is exactly what anchoring is. And like I said, you guys can do it with anything. Literally, if you I'll use Brian as another example. He told me this story about when he was younger. He had gotten new shoes, and he, being a little kid, was under the assumption that these new shoes were going to make him run faster. So anytime as a little kid he would get new shoes, he would run. He would think that he could run fast. And that is something that if you tell yourself that this thing is going to help me feel this or do that, and you believe it, then it does have that power. So your mind is such a powerful thing, and that's why these things are able to work. That's why it's super important that you're feeding your mind positive things all the time, because whatever you're putting into your head, it grows. So we want positive affirmations, positive triggers, and you can use these positive triggers, these positive anchors to combat the negative ones too. And this could be some shadow work for you. I know it's hard. I struggle with PTSD sometimes with certain circumstances that I am in, and that I have been through. And I haven't tried this yet. But it's something that I've been considering doing because I would like to rewire my mind as far as those traumas go. But what you can do is put yourself into that negative space that you didn't want to be in and add a positive anchor to help kind of change your perception on that. So once I start trying to navigate that situation, maybe I'll make a video about that. But like I said, it's something that I honestly have not tried to do yet, just because it is a very scary, daunting thing. You don't want to relive those negative traumas, but if you can get yourself to a place where you can do that and you feel comfortable doing that, then hopefully you can use a technically positive anchoring to pull yourself out of some of those negative feelings. And yeah, so that's something that I am going to work on for myself. And if anybody is interested in learning about that, I would love to make another video about that, maybe about my own personal experience doing it. But yeah, positive anchoring, positive triggers can be super impactful. Anchors can be something that we are conditioned to do as well. So like when we are driving and we see a stop sign, we taught ourselves to stop, right? That sign means that we have to do this thing. So there are definitely, I'd say, positive, neutral, and negative triggers. The negative triggers, obviously, you don't feel good. When you were younger and you did something that your parents didn't like, you know that if you did that thing, that it would result in you getting yelled at or a spanking or something similar to that. And then neutral is like what I just described, like a stop sign, you know you have to stop. Or a railroad, like when you're on a bus, and like, do you remember, like the bus driver, at least my bus driver, would always like do the little bunny ears thing, and we had to be quiet when we went over the track. So that was like a learned, like, okay, I know we're gonna do this, so we have to do this, thing like that. So that's the neutral. And then positive, it can be something that you create, or it can be something something that triggers a positive memory, a positive feeling. All anchoring is, you're taking something external and attaching an internal emotion to it. So, like I said, you could literally, I love to think of it as magic. So if I say, I'm going to take my hairbrush and I am going to comb my hair, and every time I comb my hair is becoming more beautiful, it's becoming longer. And I think that positive triggers, positive anchors, I always connect them with manifesting, because if you can create, hey, this thing is going to make me feel this thing, or it is going to allow me to do this. You can give yourself confidence. You're giving yourself positivity. You're giving yourself happy feelings by telling yourself that every time you do this action, or every time you see this thing, you're able to give yourself something. I think of it as magic. I could speak to my coffee and say, or not even speak to my coffee, speak to myself about the coffee and say, as I am drinking this, I am going to be happy, I am going to be awake, this coffee is doing this thing for me, and I'm giving myself the power to accept what the coffee is going to give me. If that makes sense. I love anchoring. It can just do so much, and like it can be a subconscious thing or a conscious thing. Conscious is when I'm making these decisions, making these choices to say, this is my magic pen. Every time I touch it, every time I write something down, whatever I write is going to happen. But then things like seeing my kids or seeing my husband just make me happy. It brings up a happy feeling. And those are things that are subconscious. It's just your brain is wired to react that way. And you can unlearn some things in that same sense. Like, I have a really bad habit of, if I'm at the grocery store and I even make eye contact with a person, I will immediately apologize. I'll just say, I'm sorry. Because I, for such a long period of my life, felt like I was just like a burden. Like, people didn't want to look at me. Like, it's sad if I get into it. I went through some bullying issues that definitely messed with my self-confidence and just made me a really insecure person. I just always felt like I was doing something wrong, and I literally felt like at some points like I was just like, sorry that you have to look at me, sorry I'm in your way. Like, so that's something that's hardwired, and I have to work on it. And I think that creating positive triggers, like now when I see a person, I try to just smile and say like, hi, instead of something, and I mean, maybe that's still weird, but it's not like a self-deprecating, like negative feeling. It's happy, pleasant. It gives me more of a pleasant feeling if I'm like smiling at the person and greeting them than allowing myself to feel negative and being like sorry. So anchoring is just, it's great. It's great for so many different things. And if you would like another video on it more in depth, or if you'd like more examples or anything like that, let me know and I will definitely make sure that we do another one. But in the meantime, go try it. Let me know how it works. If it works for you, let me know your triggers, any triggers, positive, negative, neutral ones that you've noticed. Yeah. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.